All right. Today we're gonna talk about medieval Japan. Um, about Buddhism. When Buddhism got spread to Japan, this originally Indian religion were made Japanese. Were made Japanese. So this happens to all world religions when it got spread to the whole world. Local people always transform the religion in a way they need. So on one hand, the local society is changed by Buddhism, but on the other hand, Buddhism itself was also changed by Japanese themselves. Okay, so although most of the popular Buddhist schools popular in Japan or from China, but Japanese did give it a little bit Japaneseness. Okay, yeah. For example, uh, political power used Buddhism to legitimate their power. To legitimate power. Actually, this is how religions are used in most pre-modern societies. When a new society accepts a new religion, right? The rulers always use their religion to justify, to legitimate their power. The Japanese imperial family was not an exception. Um, so, not surprisingly, in Japan, we see legends, newly invented legends about Buddha as the god of sun and how Buddha served as a remote ancestor of the Japanese emperor. Actually, by the way, the Japanese imperial family claims that they are the longest lasting royal family in the whole world. And they're at the current Japanese emperors. I mean, this is all claim, okay? This is all claim. We don't know to what degree has ground in historical reality. Okay. The claim is that the current Japanese emperor's ancestor can be traced all the way back to like 2,000 years ago, and it was continuous. The family line is continuous. There was there was no stop. There was no stop. Um, if this claim is true, the Japanese imperial family is probably the only unique royal family that is non-stopping for 2,000 years. This you don't see this in China. You don't see this in Europe, right? You know, because we know that most of dynasties they last only for a certain period. The typical Chinese dynasties last for typically 2 or 300 years, and then the family line will get stopped. The last emperor of the dynasty in China would be in the, this would be kicked out from the throne. Okay, but the Japanese claim that they have the longest lasting family line. Well, to a certain degree, it is true because since the 11th and the 12th century, the Japanese emperor pretty much became a figurehead. Uh, we know that the Bakufu or the shogun became the military leader, the military general became the leader of all the most of Japanese military force. So the emperor was has been a figurehead since 12th century AD. So so they survived. This family line survived, ironically because he had no power. So to a certain degree, this claim is true. Okay, so that's how Buddhism was sort of used by the imperial court to justify their power. And there are also legends, other legends fabricated about Bodhisattvas coming to Japan to spread this new religion in Japan and how they subdue all kinds of evil spirits and demons. We mentioned this last time. The Bodhisattvas are the Buddhist sages who could enter nirvana, but they refuse, but return uh, to human world to save those, to rescue those people who are in need of help. So, so those are bodhisattvas. So we have many stories about bodhisattvas coming to Japan. Another aspect of Japanese um, Buddhism is that there is a very strong tendency towards secularization. We know that in many other parts in the world, when you become a Buddhist, that means you're gonna have to abandon your family basically, yeah, because your family is one attachment you have to drop. So you have to join the sangha. That means the Buddhist community, living with other Buddhists in a remote mountain, ideally, and then do cultivation, do self-cultivation and meditation every day in a monastery, not in your family. Okay, but in Japan, there are a lot of expedient means for practicing Buddhism. So there are a lot of disciplines have been changed or adapted to fit the Japanese society. Okay, there's a lot of utilitarian interpretations of Buddhism. For example, in terms of Japanese monks' lives, there are less disciplines, right? Sometimes you could eat meat, right? This is unacceptable in many other areas in the world, right? In some Japanese Buddhist branches, you could get married, and you could even give the monastery to your son. Okay, so so this is again, having sex is not acceptable in many other Buddhist communities, but not in some parts in Japan. Okay, and the Japanese Buddhist monks, they could have their secular names. They could keep their secular names. This is also not the common practice in other areas in the world. For example, in China and most parts of Vietnam and Korea, if you become a Buddhist monk, you not only you abandon your family, you also abandon your secular name. You get a new Buddhist name, okay? Because you get a new life. You get a new life. Okay? Uh, Monasteries. We mentioned this last time. Because of all the donations and sponsorship from the imperial court, became the biggest landowners. Okay, they're parallel to the big landholders like feudal lords and the emperor. Buddhist monasteries are normally the biggest landowners in the local area, and they're power centers. The power centers not only because they are centers of a belief, they are also centers of culture. Okay, the Buddhist monks are normally the only one that can read uh, in the local community. Remember, in medieval Japan, during this time, more than 90% of the local community members are illiterate. They cannot read. So Buddhist monks sort of like the monopolize the culture in local societies in Japan. The situation is a little bit like the Christian church in medieval Europe, where the priests, they pretty much they're center of culture and power in the local society. Um, Feudal lords, after centuries of the imperial efforts to spread Buddhism, feudal lords, many local feudal lords also joined this collective mission to spread Buddhism. So eventually, Buddhism became the most dominant religion in Japan. Vegetarianism is widespread. Non-killing as a basic teaching is accepted by most people, but not by Buddhist samurai. Okay, Buddhism also has very strong influence on Japanese art, painting, calligraphy, aesthetics, and even the way of sword. So basically, every aspect of life is involved in Buddhism. But at the same time, there are also different forms of Buddhism or schools of Buddhism being spread in Japan. The major Buddhist sects include the Pure Land School. The Pure Land School is pretty simple. You basically the belief is that if you chant Buddha's name like more than 1,000 times each day, the promise is that after you die, your soul is gonna go to the Pure Land. That's the promised land of eternal happiness. You're gonna get out of this endless ocean of suffering. Okay, esoteric school. This Buddhist sect involves a lot of spells, mantras, all kinds of rituals. Sometimes even magical power. The belief of magical power is real. So this school would use a lot of that. The discipline school, of course, focuses a lot on following this discipline for you to be spiritually enlightened. And lastly, the Zen school. So we have to talk about the Zen Buddhism. Zen Buddhism was invented by a Chinese Buddhist monk called Huineng during the Tang Dynasty in the 7th century. Once it got spread to Japan, very quickly it became the most powerful, most popular Buddhist school with the largest number of followers. The Zen school is actually very, very different from the original form of Buddhism. We're talking about the original Indian form of Buddhism. Okay, in the Indian form of Buddhism focuses a lot on written records, sutras, right? If you want to become a Buddhist, you're gonna have to read the Buddha's teachings. That means you have to understand the sutras, right? You have to remember the sutras, follow Buddha's way. But the Zen Buddhism invented in these stages is very, very different from the original version of Buddhism from India. The the Zen Buddhists, they believe that language or written words are fundamentally untrustworthy. You cannot trust language because language always misleading, misrepresenting things. Okay, so in order to get truth, you have to forget about language. You have to have a wordless communication with some mystical being through meditation. Okay, meditation itself is not very different from book reading, right? In, in reading a book, you follow the logic, you follow the concepts, you try to analyze the concepts, you try to establish some connections between words, right? So it's a very logical, reasonable way of understanding concepts. But meditation is it's not logical. Okay, it's not a logical way of practice. But Buddhism focuses a lot on meditation, and they try to abandon language and words totally. Yeah, actually, a typical Japanese Zen master would tell you, the more you know, the more ignorant you are. Yeah, knowledge is not a good thing. So they're totally anti-book knowledge. Knowledge is an obstacle for you to understand truth or get enlightenment. This is probably there is some Chinese Taoism influence on Zen Buddhism because Taoism is much earlier than Zen Buddhism. So we do see some connections there, and we don't see this kind of anti-book knowledge tendency in original Buddhism from India. Okay, but Zen Buddhism has a very strong influence on almost all aspects of Japanese art. Okay, uh, the idea is that the basic idea is that um, the real enlightenment is ineffable. That means once you say it, you lose it. Okay, so it's the real enlightenment is not cannot be communicated, cannot be understood, cannot be obtained by words. So yes, it is a certain degree of mysticism, but you have to really focus your mind on something in order to get it. There's a bit, and mind focusing certainly is the essence of meditation. So yeah, as a typical samurai or Japanese aristocrats, you could have spent hours meditating every day, just in order to calm down your mind and heart, and then to reach a oneness between your body and your mind, and then um, trying to reach some state of enlightenment. So that's the idea. That's the idea. Zen Buddhism also requires people to pay attention to the details of their life, living the here and now, living the moment of the here and now. Don't they get distracted? They wanna they. This is also helps with your mind focusing. But actually, if you think about that, meditation is pretty hard, right? Right. The reason is because if I tell you, close your eyes and don't think of a polar bear, what's the first thing you think of? It's a polar bear, right? So because our mind is not in control, a lot of times our mind is like a wild horse; it's running everywhere, in this realm, right? But Zen Buddhism tells you not only to control your body, but also to psychologically control your mind. So meditation is actually a great way for you to actually manage your mind. Uh, it's actually pretty hard. Yeah. For example, a Zen master would ask you to not think of anything for 5 minutes. If you close your eyes, sit there, can you not think of anything for 5 minutes? You need to practice to reach that state actually, because immediately you will think of your homework, think about your family, think about some movies watched last night. Your thought of trying uh, is astray. It's going. It's a white horse. It's going anywhere. Um, so in other words, um, if you're a Zen Buddhist, then every moments or every practice of your life could become a step for you to practice meditation. Okay, eating could be meditation. Um, yeah, and also flower arranging. It could be meditation. So although you're arranging flower, but at the same time, you're actually your focus is not, of course, your focus is on the flowers, but the purpose is not to have a beautiful arranged flower so that you can sell it to in the market. No, it's not that. The purpose of spending hours arranging flowers is for you to have a peaceful mind and heart, to understand what's going on in your mind and heart, and a practice meditation. Okay, and eventually to get some Buddhist enlightenment. So that's the purpose of a flower arranging. Okay, same is true for the art of arranging tea. Okay, the Japanese already started drinking tea during this medieval time period, and the tea is originally imported from China, as so was this tradition of drinking tea. The Chinese started drinking tea during the 300 400 AD, and then during the classical period, tea drinking as a hobby was transmitted into Japan, and Japanese used the art of making tea as one expedient means for Buddhist cultivation. For Buddhist cultivation, during the hours of arranging tea, you try to reach this tranquil mindset, and then reach a meditation kind of a state. Okay, and by the way, the original Japanese version of drinking tea is uses a tea called mocha. I mean, we all know what mocha is, right? So basically, how to make a mocha? You crush the tea tree leaves. Okay, the tea tree leaves are picked up from tea trees, right? And then you crush them into small parcels, and then you use you filter them through so that you only have the finest parcel, and then you put in some water, and then you stir it up. You stir up the mocha parcels, tea parcels, until you get to this green color um, fluid. So that's mocha. That's mocha. Okay. All right. Confucianism. Confucianism is also got imported into Japan, and it became the foundation of aristocrats' education. Confucianism, again, is from China. It's a native Chinese philosophy. Confucius lived around I'm sorry, 2,500 years ago, around the same time as Buddha. And his teachings were recorded in this book called The Analects of Confucius during the classical time period and medieval time period. A bunch of Confucian texts got imported into Japan. Okay, and the Confucian concepts that most influenced Japan is ritual. Okay, according to Confucius, every moment of your life, every movements you make in your life, it must follow the ritual propriety. Okay, it's a ritual. Ritual basically can be considered as a general social norms that you must follow. Okay, for example, in classroom, you must follow some ritual. Right, at home, when you treat your parents, you must follow some ritual. Right, when you deal with your friends, you follow some ritual. So ritual is everywhere. It's ubiquitous. Okay, um, so that's the Confucian concept, and Japanese totally embraced this concept. They embraced this concept even better than Chinese, who invented Confucianism. Yeah, if you go to today's Japan, you will find out that ritual is still everywhere, even in today's Japan. Yeah, when you visit your friend's house, you know how you greet each other. That's a ritual, right? How you take off your shoes. That's a ritual, right? How you sit is a ritual. How you receive a cup of tea from your friends. That's a ritual. So every moment of your life involves some ritual. Uh, well, at first you may think, well, that's tiring, right? You have to follow ritual every moment, like follow some kind of law. But you know what? If you're growing up from that cultural environment, okay, if since young you have been abiding by ritual propriety, everything becomes so easy and everything becomes so spontaneous. You don't need to think of twice about ritual to follow it. Let me give you one example. For example, um, if you go to say a party, someone you don't know come to you and stick out his hand to you and say hello, you spontaneously stick out your hand and shake hands with that person without thinking, right? Without anxiety, without worrying, without doubt. Why so? Because you have practiced ritual so many times before. So it becomes part of your second instinct. Everything is so spontaneous, right? So yeah. So when we look at the Japanese culture from as a foreigner, at first we may think it's exhausting because you have to follow all kinds of ritual, right? Even the way you address your grandma must be different from other adults, from other elders, right? There's all kinds of social norms and rituals. But if you really follow that every day, everything should become pretty spontaneous. Okay. Code of honor. Eventually the ruling class in Japan, called the samurai, they accepted the code of honor from Confucianism. Okay, in general, samurai refers to this ruling class. You don't have to be a fighter to be a samurai. Okay, but you do need to be born to be a samurai. So in other words, this is actually almost like a social caste system. The you cannot call yourself a samurai because you want to. You have to have the blood. Okay, that's the thing. So yes, in medieval Japan, you must be born into a samurai family to have that blood to call yourself a samurai. So that said, only is a minority in the society are samurai. Roughly speaking, from 6%, only 6% to 10% of the society members are samurai. So in other words, more than 90% of Japanese, they were never samurai. Okay, they're peasants. They're peasants. But there's some very very rare case when ordinary commoners can become a samurai, but you need approval. Okay, you need approval from the imperial court or the shogun, and that's a very very rare case. Yeah. Later in Japanese history, in the so-called Sengoku Jidai, or the Warring States period, there was a guy called Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi was born into a commoner's family, but he was a very intelligent person, and also a great fighter. So he started his military career as a footed soldiers, or at the lowest ranking in the army, but eventually he got promoted to become the military commander. Okay, and then he was finally given the honor and title of samurai. Okay, so Hideyoshi, people like Hideyoshi are the very very rare case when a commoner can be promoted to become a samurai if you happen to be born into a commoner's family. But but still, even for Hideyoshi, he couldn't get the title of a shogun, even though he unified Japan by military power and became the most powerful warlord. He still cannot become shogun because he did not originally have samurai blood. So the emperor refused to appoint him as a shogun. So as a result, Hideyoshi wanted even greater glory. So he invaded Korea in order to invade China, so he could become Chinese emperor. He knows that he can never become Japanese emperor because he doesn't have that blood. but when he looked at the continent, he saw that, hey, look at China. They don't have this a social barrier for commoners, right? A lot of Chinese commoners could establish their own dynasty and become emperor, right? As long as they believe the so-called mandate of heaven shifted to their hands, right? So Hideyoshi thought he could do that. So, so he invaded Korea in order to become Chinese emperor, but he got defeated in Korea by the allied forces of Chinese and the Koreans again. Okay, we know that in the last time we talked about in the 660s AD, the first Japanese attempt to invade Korea was thwarted by the allied force of Chinese and the Koreans. In the 1590s, this happened much later. The Hideyoshi's second attempt to invade Korea was also stopped by Chinese and Koreans. And then after Meiji Restoration, in the 1980s, I'm sorry, in the 1880s and 1890s, the modernized Japanese Empire again for the third time invaded Korea, and that time they succeeded. And the invasion of Korea in the 1890s eventually became the origin of greater war in East Asia. So when we talk about World War II, we're gonna mention that. So you really have to look at history to understand the modern East Asia. Okay, so now for Confucianism, Confucianism had a very strong influence on Japanese samurai culture. The so-called Bushido, or the code of warriors, are basically totally based on Confucian ideas, right? The concept of loyalty, valor, courage, sincerity, benevolence, righteousness, filial piety. Filial piety means the respect that you pay to your parents or your grandparents. So all these are Confucian core values, and they became the foundation of Japanese samurai culture. So in order to call yourself a samurai, you must abide by all these Confucian core values. Family values also very important, because Confucianism or Confucian teachings are totally based on family values and the belief. And Confucian scholars believe family values must be the foundation for government. So in other words, you must run a government in the same way you run your family. So family values and political values are congruent. They're the same thing. So in other words, as a samurai, you must treat your master feudal lords like your father. Okay, and just like your father can take away the life of a son, I mean this is allowed in Confucian teaching. Uh, a master can order a samurai to commit suicide. Okay, so you have to understand that. How do we understand this? You have to look at the Confucian teachings to understand the core values of a samurai culture. Yeah, the master would have almost uh, unquestionable, undisputable power over a samurai, over the underlying samurai, the underling samurai. Okay, so that's a Confucian influence on Bushido, the way of warriors. Okay, so there are some details about Confucianism. We're gonna skip that. Confucianism. If you're interested, you can check out a copy of the Analects of Confucius and take a look. Um, all educated men in medieval Japan, they are versed in Confucian teachings. They are all the Confucianism is their common language. Is a common language. Okay. For example, in the Analects of Confucius, there is this differentiation between Junzi and the Xiaoren. Junzi means the gentleman, right? The exemplary person, and the Xiaoren means the inferior man or debased man, right? And a samurai would consider themselves as gentlemen, and they're very different from the so-called inferior man, who are the 90% of the society. Okay, and the samurai, they're not only gentlemen by blood, they're also superior by their moral virtues. Okay, so you have to immerse yourself in the Chinese Confucian culture to become morally superior to the rest of the society. And according to the Confucian teaching, the whole society is divided into four classes. Is divided into four classes. Okay, so the so-called shi or shi, or the Japanese pronunciation is a shi. Chinese pronunciation is a shi. They refer to this exactly the same kanji, the same Chinese character over here. So this kanji refers to the gentleman, okay, or the samurai, okay. So this class, this social class is at the top of the society. As we mentioned before, only 6% of the 10% of population were born as samurai. So they are the shi, okay. And then underneath the first class, we have peasants. We have peasants, okay. They are the people who are the majority of the Japanese population. Most of them are illiterate. They work in the land the whole day, all day, diligently, and they pay tax to their feudal lords, to different levels of a shi. So they are the majority of Japanese population. And then the third social class is artisan. Okay, artisans are basically the workmen who produce, manufactures shoes, armors, swords, utensils, right? They build houses, right? People like that. They are the third class. And then merchants, businessmen, they are at the bottom of the society. Okay, although they may be rich, but they don't have political power, and they don't have a very high social status. So within this Confucian system, merchants are basically despised. They're looked down upon. Okay, they're at the bottom of the society. They're at the bottom of the society. During the Tokugawa period, a lot of merchants became really, really rich. We're talking about 17th, 18th century, later in history. Many merchants got really rich in Tokugawa's period when they involved in foreign trades. Okay, because in Tokugawa period, Japan had a lot of foreign trades going on with China and with the Europeans. So a lot of merchants got really rich. But even though they are super rich, these merchants still don't have a lot of political status or power. Okay, they still have to perform a certain ritual to samurai, even though the samurai are so poor that the samurai have to sell their swords to the merchants in trade of a lunch. But still, the social hierarchy is so. So we have samurai at the top of the society, and then farmers or peasants, second level, artisan, the third, merchants at the bottom. So this is the social structure of medieval Japan. Okay, all right, we're gonna skip this. These are the Confucian concepts that all samurai must study. Japanese samurai as ruling class, they don't practice martial arts every day. They have to spend a lot of time studying Confucianism, to study culture in general, and also practice Buddhism. That's a typical life of a samurai. So, okay, yeah, this is some more explanation of Confucianism. If you're interested, you can read more into the Analects of Confucius to understand more about Confucianism. So as the influence of Confucianism spreads, sports, music, most of the practices in your life became part of the moral self-cultivation practice. Okay, so Confucianism really got embedded into every aspects of Japanese social life. For example, archery. Okay, even today there are many Japanese kids practice archery in school, but the purpose is not for physical education or to have fun, but the purpose is for you to understand the ritual or social etiquette required for everybody in the society, right? When you engage in an archery competition, the way you wait for your order, the way you use your bow, the way you aim at your target, the way you shoot, all these are rituals. All these are considered as rituals. And by immersing yourself into this social culture, you learn how to follow the social the social norms are required in Japanese society. So it's not just a sports or physical education. Archery has a deeper meaning than that. Okay, so I stole this from a Hollywood blockbuster movie poster. Okay, The Last Samurai. It's a Hollywood movie made years ago, starred by Tom Cruise. Terrible movie actually, but some fighting scenes are pretty good. Okay, I stole their poster because all these kanji represent the core value of a samurai. Okay, look at this one: duty or loyalty, courage, honesty or justice. And this one is ritual. Okay, this character means ritual. Courtesy, well, it's translated on the poster as courtesy, but it actually means ritual. And compassion or benevolence, and then honesty or sincerity. So all these are the core values required for a warrior, okay, in the Japanese society. If you want to call yourself a samurai, you must follow all these code of honor. Okay, yeah, pictures of samurai taken in late 19th century. This is the last. These are perhaps the last group of samurais that European photographers can capture. Yeah. Well, they don't look as cool as Tom Cruise, but they are the real samurai. Okay, although they are holding their weapons, but inside they all believe in Confucian values. Okay, you have to read all these Confucian classics imported from China, like the Analects of Confucius or Mencius. But one thing we need to keep in mind is that Confucianism, just like Buddhism, is not considered as Chinese by Japanese. This is something very important. Today, we very easily equate Confucianism with the Chinese civilization. But that's a misunderstanding because for most East Asian societies, Confucianism is like a Christianity. It transcends national boundaries. You see what I'm talking about? So in other words, we don't say Jesus Christ is a I don't know is Jewish, right? But we don't say it's Israeli, right? It belongs to the world. But same thing in the eyes of a medieval Japanese Confucius. It's not just Chinese. He belongs to the whole world. It's a world religion. Okay, believing Confucianism doesn't mean that it take away your Japaneseness. Actually, there was no such concept of Japaneseness in medieval Japan. Uh, the so-called Japanese national pride or Japaneseness is a new concept that the Japanese invented in late 19th century by borrowing from European nationalism. Okay, so for a medieval Japanese, what he cares about, he doesn't really care about the nation state. There was no nation state in Japan. What he cares the most as a samurai, he cares the most about his little in fifth land, his land in fifth by his feudal lord. Okay, he cared about the nearby villages with the villagers who pay him tax. Right, the same thing as an ordinary Japanese farmer. You don't care about whether you're Japanese or not. Okay, because you don't have the concept of modern nation. You only care about your local community, your village, okay, your family. You don't even care about the emperor because you never see him, right? You only pay tax to your immediate feudal lord. So pre-modern societies like Japan, for as an ordinary farmer, your intellectual world is very different from today's Japanese citizen. Actually, in pre-modern time, the Japanese did not even have the concept of citizenship. Okay, for as a Japanese farmer, he's just a farmer. Okay, he only care about his land, his crops, his family, and his tax. That's it. That's it. only in modern time, first in Europe, we have this concept of nationalism. All of a sudden, yeah, this a lot of scholars believe this change came after the French Revolution in late 18th century, when French Revolution first invented this idea of a nation state or nationalism. That means one nation, one state, and and all farmers are not farmers anymore. They become Frenchmen. Okay, they become Frenchmen. Same thing. This happened, in late 19th century. Ordinary Japanese farmers, they're not farmers anymore. They are taught by standardized education curriculum imposed by the state. And this education system teaches ordinary Japanese farmers that you're not just farmers, you're Japanese. Okay, you belong to this greater Japanese nation. Okay, and you share this national identity with another farmer in Hokkaido that you'll never see in your whole life. At first it seems weird, right? Why would I share an identity with someone I would never meet in my life, right? But national education teaches you so. Okay, this is the consequence of Meiji Reform. Meiji Reform borrowed nationalism from the West, from Europe, and very quickly the Japanese imperial government used nationalism to inculcate this new concept of national identity into the minds of ordinary Japanese farmers, teaching you're Japanese. You're not just a farmer who only care about your land. Okay, so this is a modern transformation. But for now, just keep in mind that in medieval time, for a Japanese local village, people did not care about the emperor. People don't care about Japanese nation at all. He did not even have the concept of Nihon or Japan, right? For him, he's just an ordinary farmer. He did not even have a surname. Okay, actually, you have to be in medieval Japan or traditional Japan, you have to be a samurai in order to have a surname. That means family name. Ordinary farmers don't even have family names. Family name is actually a privilege of samurai, of the ruling class. Okay, a lot of rituals, right? This is two Japanese samurai bowing to each other. This is a typical ritual when they meet each other, and the person in lower social ranking would perform the ritual first. Okay, this is just like a military. This is very, very important, and this is the part of the Confucian ritual that everybody has to follow. You, as typical Japanese samurai, you probably have to bow like, I don't know, dozens of times each day, and you bow in different way, depending on the context, depending on who you bow to. Okay, so you even the way you greet with each other is part of ritual. It's part of ritual. Okay, so pluralization. Pluralization. There are conflicts between different clans about a power struggle. Your textbook will lay out the details, so do the reading. But keep in mind that after all these power struggles, the emperor's power declined. The emperor's power declined around 12th century. 12th century. Feudalism again became stronger and stronger. Okay, the local feudal lords they don't listen to the emperor. They don't listen to the emperor. Last time we talked about the Taika reform and why it failed. In my opinion, geography in Japan is a major determining factor why Taika reform failed. This is my interpretation. Japan is not like China. Geographically, it's very different. It's difficult for any central government to reach every corner of the society. But in China, if you control the central plain, the emperor could easily conquer most other provinces. But this is not the case in Japan. So this is why it has been very difficult for any central government to establish an effective central government rule in entire Japan until Meiji Meiji Restoration. So 1192, the most powerful military leader or the feudal lord got appointed by the emperor as the shogun. which simply means the generalissimo or military general. Okay, so from then on, any winning feudal lords or warlords who became the number one or most powerful warlords in Japan, you could ask the emperor for the title of shogun. And most of the time, the emperor couldn't say no because the emperor had no army loyal. I mean, he had no army comparable to that of shoguns. So the emperor is a figurehead, starting from this point. So the emperor would pretty much give the title of shogun to anybody who won the civil war. Okay. So starting from 1192, we have the Kamakura shogunate. Kamakura shogunate. Okay, and this shogunate is almost like a dynasty. It lasted for almost 200 years, to actually more than 200 years, and then the headquarters of the shogun is called a bakufu. Bakufu, okay, the kanji is here. It simply means the tent, because when shogun is fighting in the field, in the battlefield, you live in the shogun lives in a tent, right? So the tent becomes the metaphor for shogun's power. So bakufu simply means the shogun's government. Shogun's government. Yeah. All right. So the official title of shogun is called a barbarian suppressing general. So his official power comes from the emperor's appointment. He is shogun because the emperor appoints him as the general to suppress or to repel the barbarians. Okay, again, this term, barbarian suppressing general is from Chinese Confucian classics. Yeah, so most of the Japanese titles are from Confucian classics during the medieval period. So in order to deeply understand the Japanese culture, you really have to be able to read classical Chinese. Yeah. Okay, and then underneath the shogun, you have a military governor or a constable. Yeah, they are called a shugo. Right? These are the second level feudal lords, and then underneath that you have a stewards who have a smaller lands who are followers of the military governors. Okay, military governors are appointed by or protected by the shogun, and the stewards are protected by the military governors. Okay, and then underneath that you have land managers, and then at the bottom of the social pyramid. We were talking about all these levels are nobility. These are all noblemen. These are all aristocrats, and they are all, in general, samurai class. But ordinary samurai, they are basically considered as retainers or personal assistants or personal fighters for their higher feudal lords, samurai. Actually, that's a very kanji samurai simply means retainers. They're standing. It represents this Chinese character represents a person standing there holding a weapon to guard their feudal lord. So that's the original meaning of samurai. If you know kanji by looking at the character, the Chinese character alone, you would understand what this word means. Okay, so it's a typical samurai's life during the medieval time. You would believe in Zen Buddhism, and you would be educated in Confucian curriculum. You would spend a lot of time reading books, reading history, writing poetry, and talking about philosophy. All these are part of the Confucian tradition. But you also do meditation, okay? Typically for I don't know, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, perhaps. So that you have a peaceful mindset and have some Buddhist enlightenment. You follow the code of honor, and you must have absolute loyalty to your master. Any betrayal of your master is considered as unacceptable. If you betray your master, consequence is terrible. You're gonna be kicked out from the local community, and basically you become a so-called Ronin. Ronin here means masterless samurai. That means a samurai without a master. Okay, that means you don't have any social status. You're nomads. Okay, you're nomads. You don't have master. You're on your own. You're wandering around. You're running. That's dishonor. That's dishonor. Nobody's gonna respect you. Okay, if you become a running, that's terrible. Okay, but as a samurai, you also practice martial arts. So war. In this feudalist society, war is constant. So you do have to practice martial art. You're gonna have a armor um, transmitted within the family. Perhaps your grandfather had that armor and give it to your father, and your father gave it to you. So is your swords. You would have two swords, one long, one short. The long one is going to be used in battlefield, and the shorter one is going to be used when you kill yourself in seppuku. Seppuku simply means a ritualized suicide. A ritualized suicide that must be approved by your master. Okay, um, seppuku. We're going to talk about seppuku later. But here's a very quick introduction to seppuku. Um, Seppuku is a highly ritualized, honorable suicide. When you made a big mistake, or you wanna say I'm sorry in a really really deep way, you commit seppuku, and it has to most of the time it has to be approved or later approved by your master. It's typically the emperor if you're a high-ranking samurai. Okay, if it's not approved by your master or the emperor, it's not considered as a ritualized suicide. So it's not a seppuku. Then in that case, you just killed yourself. It's not seppuku. Okay. Yeah, in medieval Japan, you would have a typical castle like this, right? The feudal lord would live in there, and he would have had the land nearby the castle, and the nearby villages are protected by him, but also have to pay tax to the castle. And then he would recruit samurai from the local community. The samurai would be trained in the castle, and then also protect their master. If their master wants to go to a war, he would rally samurai around him and bring the army to the battle. The Japanese the samurai armor is made of steel plates and bamboo, but they are actually very very strong, very very strong. It could easily take you 2 hours to put on all the different parts of the armor. So yeah, you have to prepare for the battle for 2 hours. Put on all these different parts of your armor. Okay, and the armor is actually pretty strong. It's actually pretty strong. They provide a really good help to the warrior, although they are made of a bamboo. Uh, yeah, but there's some vulnerable parts. Yeah, for example, under the arms, under the armpits. The armpits are vulnerable parts. You have to protect them especially. A typical samurai would uh, would write a poetry to express his feelings about their life, about the transient of seasons, right? To express his Buddhist enlightenment. So poetry is a big part of a samurai's life. So can we have somebody can we have a volunteer to read this poetry written by a samurai right before he commits seppuku? Can we have a volunteer to read this poetry for the class? Anyone?
I'll go.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead.
Even a lifelong prosperity is but one cup of sake. A life of 49 years is passed in a dream. I know not what life is nor death. Year in year out, all but a dream. Both heaven and hell are left behind. I stand in the moonlit dawn, free from clouds of attachment.
Thank you. Thank you, Jax. Okay, so what do you think about this poetry? What do you think that this poetry is the author is trying to say?
I think he's just trying to say that he's done with his physical life. Um, and he's done with any attachments that he has. So when he
Mm,
commits suicide, he no longer has the attachments that he had or thought of in his physical life.
very good. So he's done. But emotionally, do you see any fear, any trouble, any worries, any doubts, anything? What is the mental state? What is the emotional state?
There doesn't seem to be any fear or anything like that. He's very calm,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like accepting, like this is just how it is. This is where I'm going next.
Exactly. Exactly. Clearly, this is a very strong Buddhist influence. Because Zen Buddhism makes him transcend life and death. So when he sees death, he's very calm. Actually, more than calm. When you see this line, I stand in the moonlight dawn, free from clouds of attachments, you even feel some sense of beauty there. So death is beautiful. Do you agree? Any other comments on this poetry? All right, we probably don't have time to go into all the details of Buddhist philosophy. But here, one thing is clear. This Buddhism or meditation certainly made this samurai very calm and even have a sense of beauty when he's faced with death. Uh, with death. But death itself is brutal. Okay, for example, if you look at this menu, it teaches you how to commit suicide in an ideal way. In an ideal way, you would think of seppuku is just pushing a sword into your belly. No, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. It's more complicated than that because there are different ways to cut your belly. Okay, so we're gonna look at all these different ways. First, on the upper left-hand corner, you have the most traditional way. Is called the I get translated into I translate the title into horizontal cut. Okay, you cut horizontally from left to right. Okay, and then at the same time, when you cut, you also slowly rotate the blade of your sword so that it will inflict more damage to your belly to make sure you die. Okay, yeah, it's gonna be certainly very painful. Certainly very painful. I'm not quite sure how many people actually have the courage and the power and the physical strength to actually sustain the pain and finish the seppuku strictly according to this menu, right? And then they're also cross cut. Okay, you have two cuts. Okay, one horizontal, the other is vertical. Okay, so you have a cross cut of your belly, or you can cut a T shape cut, a wound on your belly, or you can cut. This is a southern style. This one is called a southern style cut. Uh, you cut your belly from top to bottom. So this typically shows how much attention to details the Japanese people have paid to things even like a seppuku. There are so many different styles and so many details you have to follow in order to properly commit seppuku. So it's not just to simply kill yourself. Okay, you have to follow all these rituals, but keep in mind that these are all highly ideal. These are ideal types in reality, I'm not quite sure how many people, how many samurai actually have the strength and the power to really properly commit seppuku like required here. Yeah, I mean, after all, most of the samurai only have one chance to commit seppuku if we want to successfully do that, right? Everybody is unseasoned, is unexperienced in terms of seppuku. You don't have a lot of time to practice that before you do that. But okay, so this is a staged photo. It just shows you a typical moment of seppuku. In later time, like Tokugawa period, um, we do see historical records do provide a lot of accounts about seppuku, and in most cases, the person who commits seppuku would not have any strength to do anything more after he pushed the sword into his belly. That's it. Okay. Most people just only have power or strength to just put the sword into his belly. And then he will be so painful to do anything else. So at that moment, you need an assistant standing by you, holding a longer katana or the samurai sword to cut off your head. Okay, so when you push the short sword into your belly, your assistant will very quickly cut off your head to end up the pain. To end up the pain, and of course there will be witnesses. Witness all this ritual process, and they're probably sent over to see how you commit seppuku by your master or the emperor. And then after they saw this, these witnesses would go back to report the process to your master, so that your master would approve this seppuku as proper. Since the seppuku most of the time is one way for you to show your apology to your master. After you finish your life, your family and your name will be honored by your master. Okay, because you honored yourself with this ritualized suicide. That way, you cleared your name. You cleaned your name. You're compensated for your mistakes or your crimes. That way, your master will still honor your name, your and your family. So it's a good thing, considered by the person who committed seppuku. In modern time, there are some cases when a Japanese military officer who committed suicide, and he tried to get the emperor's approval for his suicide, so his suicide can be considered as seppuku. For example, in 1926, there was a mutiny or coup d'état. Thousands of Japanese younger military officers, they launched a coup. They tried to kill the prime minister. This happened in 1926, right before World War II. This coup was a crackdown by the government, and then the leaders of the coup asked the emperor for the permission to commit a seppuku. He said, Emperor, I launched this coup for you because you're surrounded by evil ministers. I want to kill the evil ministers to save you. But the emperor certainly disagreed. So after this coup failed, one of the leaders of the coup say, Emperor, I failed. Okay, this coup certainly failed, but still, believe me, I do this for you. Okay, so please, the last thing I want from you is approve my seppuku. I want to kill myself, but I want to honor myself and you. So please approve this as seppuku. But Emperor Showa, at the time, he says, if you want to kill yourself, just kill yourself. It's not seppuku. Okay, so this is a poor guy, this is a poor military officer killed himself, and that suicide is not even considered as seppuku. His family is not honored. Yeah. Last thing I want to mention is that in medieval time, there were female samurai. There were female samurai. Yeah. Our the dominant understanding of the medieval Japanese society is that it's highly patriarchal. Is focused on is male centered. Well, to a certain degree, it is true, but since the war is so constant, a lot of times, a feudal lord would need more human power to join the war. So in that case, even females could be mobilized. Especially if we're born into an aristocratic family. Okay, and you could receive as a female, you could receive a classical education and martial art training. In that case, you could get on. We do have some cases when female samurais joined the warfare and got killed in battle, in action. So medieval Japanese society is pretty complicated. All right, so this is our lecture about medieval Japan.